Good morning. Got 8:32 on Thursday, October 26, 2023. We're here for public forum. Those of you that have electronic devices, phones, laptops, what have you, if you'll please put those on silent or vibrate so they don't disturb the meeting. Public forum is an opportunity for residents to come up and speak about county issues that may not be on today's agenda. When you get up to speak, when we call on you, if you'll come up to the podium, there's a little square button at the base of that microphone. If you'll push that button, light will turn green. Then just give your name and your city before you speak, and you'll have 4 minutes. If you wish to speak on something that's on today's board meeting agenda, which also includes the LDC hearing, you can certainly do so, but you'll forfeit your opportunity to speak on during the board meeting on that agenda item. If anyone wishes to speak, you should have signed up on the sign-in sheet. If I don't have you on here, once we get through the list, if you just raise your hand, you can come up and we'll get you signed in afterwards. Up first, I've got Sherry Chapman.
Sherry Chapman, Pace, Florida. One thing that I'd like to talk about again is the fact that we are cutting down all our trees. We are cutting down all the habitat that our ecosystem needs. We're even allowing filling in of wetlands. And the whole purpose for wetlands is to purify and to ecologically make water viable and usable again. When we interrupt this process, it depends on the water system to come in and dredge, and then they have to put all kinds of chemicals in it to be able to use it. It's not like it used to be where you could drill a well and the well water would be sufficient for you to use. The more that we do this, the worse our water gets. I would like to say that trees, there's no reason for every tree on every lot to be cut down. There is a percentage of every development that can be saved as a tree, a mature tree, not one that you're going to knock all of them down like they've done on Sterling Road and Bell Lane for years, but ones that are there, that will be there, that have been there, that can actually absorb 11,000 gallons of water. You put these little crepe myrtles up there and they'll do in drought. They don't drink a whole lot of water. They don't grow real big. They really do not do a lot for the environment per se because they never really get big enough to do it. When developers come in and they plan out their subdivision, if they had to keep trees, I guarantee you they could figure out how to do it. If not, there are plenty of people in this community that can help them do that. But it doesn't matter if they put all out of 100 acres, if they keep 100 trees, they can put them all in the same place, they can put them in 2 different locations, but there's no reason for there not to be any green space at all. When people come to visit, that's one of the questions you get is, where are all the trees? So gentlemen, I'd like for y'all to make it a point to make sure that we do not continue this practice. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Warner.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm glad you're all here today. I'm going to lift this up. She's a little shorter than I am.
Pick up the bottom one, the base of the microphone.
Pick it up.
Yeah, just pick where the green light is. There you go.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Okay. Diane Warner, Milton, Florida. Very happy to see all you guys here today. I have a big ask. Y'all hide behind your desk now. And I'm going to try to use a little humor this morning. I'm going to need at least 3 commissioners that have some big cojones to help me with the project, and I hope I can find that here today. This project is going to be beneficial for all of us. As you guys know, I'm an adamant supporter and adamant investigator for election integrity. I want these election machines out. and y'all all know that. I'm not going to rail on that today. If anybody in the audience needs to understand anything about our election integrity and how bad our election machines are, please follow David Clements. He is actually on Rumble, and you can find him at the Professor's Record. He has all the court cases. He's pulled in information from all the experts around the county, around the country. He's got a really good site. But as well as the election machines, one thing that I'm extremely concerned about is all the illegal aliens that are pouring across our border. Our government's handing them driver's license and social security numbers, and they're giving them cell phones. And we have to understand that when the election rolls around, that they're going to be getting a phone call, and they're going to say, you need to go to this poll and you need to vote for this person. Our country's being taken over, and it's very scary. But I've got a simple solution for it, and I hope that you guys can help me. 80% of our Republicans right now don't believe in our elections. They're really worried about them. And we got a red county, a crimson county actually, in a red state. I was speaking at the delegation meeting on last Tuesday, and all three, I know I had several of you guys there that got to hear me speak there. Our three legislators that are up there are not listening to our constituents, because I looked through their records and they have not pulled one bill or authored one bill for election integrity in 2 years. They're not listening to the constituents. The only EI bill this year never addressed anything. It was very sad. We had a lot of backlash from the people who are actually really following the bills. They didn't address citizenship at all. So we've got all these people pouring into Florida that are going to vote, and they're not addressing it, and I want to know why. So they refuse to address the fraudulent machines at all. They run from you if you want to talk about the machines. They literally run from you. So I've got a pretty simple fix for this, but I need your help. We could write a resolution or an ordinance, and then we could defer to Tom Danhauser on that, or y'all can pick either one. I don't care. But we can say on the document that we're not going to certify our presidential election unless our legislature does a couple things for us. We can label them out. We can tell them about how bad the machines are. We can tell them about how, in the resolution, how bad the people coming in, the illegal aliens are coming into our country. But we need them to fix and to have our SOEs, every SOE in our country, to verify citizenship before we let them vote. We also want a choice. In our statute right now, we are forced to use the machines. We want an and or. So maybe we can actually use paper counting. And we would want to be able to videotape that to make sure that every single person in our county can go up there and go, hey, I want to make sure that Joe Blow over here was being honest. Let me see that videotape, and it would be there. And we would know that it would be correct. We went into Orlando. Several of us went into Orlando. We learned how to paper ballot count. But if you guys vote on it, and if this passes,
thank you.
Well, if this passes, Sharon Reagan would be able to send this to every 67 counties.
Ms. Warner, your time's expired. Please be respectful of others.
We could get our county and
Warner.
we get our country to be behind us.
Please be respectful of others.
Okay.
Mr.
Your
Chairman?
time's expired.
I'd like to make a quick response. Thank you so much, Ms. Warner. You have worked hard on election integrity, and that's deeply appreciated. I've had a lot of meetings, personally with the supervisor of elections and election integrity folks, and I learned a lot about this issue. The supervisor of elections office is kind of a separate entity from the county. Now, what we can do as a board is we can do a resolution to encourage them, for instance, to do paper ballots. And she's also handcuffed by the state rules. But the state is what really controls the whole thing. So what we can do, if you can get some ideas and email it to all of us on a resolution that we can encourage the state legislator.
That's exactly what I want to do.
To basically go to paper ballots and stuff like that. Send that to us. And I believe that everybody here on this board is for election integrity, for secure elections. And And
Well,
so,
we have the REC behind us as well, and we can send it to all 67 tops of the REC, and we can encourage other counties to do the same thing, and actually get our
We're not going
legislature
to
to
have a
do the
back
right
and forth.
thing.
We've got other people signed up to speak.
Okay.
You wanted to say your piece, but Ms. Warner, we're not going to have a back and forth,
Okay.
okay?
Well, you guys
thank
can be the heroes and be able to save our state.
Dara Hardigan, you're next.
I appreciate it.
thank you so much.
I'll remind everyone, when the timer goes off, I would please ask that you respect your fellow citizens, no matter which side of the aisle they fall on or what your beliefs are. If you'll push the button, Dara. There you go.
Dara Hardigan from Midway, speaking on behalf of the Citizen Coalition and the members of Save Our Soundside. I'm going to talk on the LDC because I can't stay long enough for the regular meeting. For a long time, we have all asked each other and discussed the fact that the board seems to be voting against the will of the people. And as a representative government body, we never could figure that out, why you would vote against the will of the people, and in some cases against what we consider to be pretty definitive science, data, research, evidence, video evidence, and things like that. Well, certain things have come to light this week that may explain that. And even if you don't feel like you have been intimidated or anything like that, the public, the citizens will never know if there's been maybe a question in your mind that there would be repercussions against you if you were to vote against some special interests. Now, it is the appearance of undue influence or intimidation that makes the difference, and when you have developers writing the development code, that always raises questions, and has for a number of years now, for the public. Why would this be? Why would they let this happen? So in 2021, the Land Development Code was completely rewritten. So it was passed with one vote in its entirety. Well, this time, it is not the entire Land Development Code that's being rewritten. Sean Ward told us at the beginning of this process, we are going to correct some scrivener's errors, and there's going to be some substantive changes, but that it was not going to be in total rewritten. So since it's being revised piecemeal, we are asking that you vote on it piecemeal. And in saying that, what I mean is, in one vote, you could vote to ratify the scrivener's errors. The other items of more substantive nature, if they are, you take them one by one, if they're backed by science and data, then you pass it. If it is not backed by science and data, and it's only beneficial to a special interest party, then back to the drawing board on that one and look at it again. And, if you can't do it that way, then we would be against you voting on the Land Development Code today, and instead looking at it again and making sure that there is not special interest involved in the provisions of the Land Development Code where it is beneficial to one party but against the interest of the citizens in the on the other hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dara. Sandy Demick.
Good morning. Sandy Demick, 5457 Soundside Drive. I had sent a letter a couple of weeks ago to Sean about asking if the county staff, the biologists, are a part of the input process when we are rewriting or revising a land development code. And his answer was that the administration doesn't know of any biologists on staff. So I wanted to, that of course answered the question. Clearly they aren't if the administration doesn't know that they exist. Well, they do. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to meet Shelley Alexander when the connection went in between Tiger Point and Soundside Drive. She was in there doing some work, and I was quite pleased to know that there was a biologist on staff with the county. And it sounded as though she had been on staff for many years. Chris Verlinde, who was the Santa Rosa County Sea Grant agent, she was one of the instructors of the University of Florida, the IFAS Master Naturalist Program. And so she sent out an email to people about a year ago, letting everyone know that she was taking a job with the county. So there's two, and she's, I know, master's level marine biology. So you've got two staff that get paid, whether they're out in the field or in a meeting, helping to bring facts and science to this process. And I would like to request that we make sure that that happens in the future, because we know who's there at the table. And for every special interest or special interest paid engineer or anything, there should be at least two scientists to bring facts, to make sure that we are looking at things the correct way and not through a skewed lens. And we've seen that. We've got evidence of what has happened over the last few years. We've never had a valid reason for the practice of clear cutting. We've had a lot of excuses. Somehow in Santa Rosa County, there's just not enough room on a lot for one tree to be left standing. 2 years ago, we were given a tree ordinance for the south end of the county that anything 24 inches and bigger was protected. Has that stopped anything? No. That's self-assessment by this same special interest. And we know that there were trees that met that threshold, and it's not doing anything. We're beyond excuses. We need to work with facts and what's in the best interest of the people. And I find it completely ironic that the people that stand here and fight tooth and nail against impact fees will fork it out for manufactured dirt to try to keep a candidate from being elected so that they can fill these seats with yes men of their choosing. That's beyond the pale. This has caused the community to lose confidence in our elections. Talk about election, what needs to be investigated. This needs to be investigated. The people need to have a voice. And I want to say, even with everything that was thrown at him, he still prevailed, Kerry Smith. I'm glad that you're here. And that just lets us know, more than ever, the people are paying attention. Special interest is losing. Thank you.
Thank you. Liz Pavlik? If there's somebody else that wishes to speak, I've got Chris Curbs, the only other person signed up, so if there's anybody, just make sure you raise your hand.
Liz Pavlik, 4454 Armitage in Gulf Breeze. I don't even know what I want to say today. I've lived down here since 2008, and this is where we built our dream home. We love this area, we love the people, we love everything about it, the beauty of the nature and the trees and just the southern charm. And I hate to see it all disappear. So I just, as you move forward, we're not against development, none of us are, because I built a home down here, but we did it reasonably. We left a nice barrier between our house and the neighbors. We have 150 feet by 100 feet behind us, so we have our own barrier, because we've got wetlands behind us, so we kept it. But now there's 12 acres behind us that we don't know who owns it anymore. We think it's been sold to a developer. And just thinking about how it's all going to change, and knowing that I'm not the only one, that there are neighbors all over the peninsula who are living next to something like that, and the fears that we all have of what's going to happen to our dream homes, because it seems like the developers get what they want, and the people who have been living there all this time, we'll see. If they can flood us out, and then they'll buy our property cheap and put another subdivision in. That's the way I see it, is they don't care what happens to us. But we just hope that you do. Thank you, sorry.
Chris Kerr?
Good morning. Chris Kerr, Flood Defenders. My printer went out on me this morning, so. But I want to tell you about a job well done. I requested a watershed map from your GIS department. That it be put online so the public can see it. Elizabeth Broomfield, if I'm saying her name right, GIS Analyst 3 in your IT department, came through. It took a few days, 5 days, but I think that's reasonable. And I think y'all should start a Employee of the Month program and give people like this that do good work for the public awards for good service. Escambia County's been doing that for several years. You might ask why I asked for the watershed map or the basin maps to be shown on your GIS made available to the public. Well, I've asked for basin studies and basin maps from the county on several occasions. I've been directed through a FOIA request. The only one I got was the Tom King Bayou, or the Holly by the Sea basin study, which is an $86 million fix of flooding issues in that basin. And y'all started some of those projects, which is good. Help protect folks from flooding, mitigate flooding problems. I mean, that's what you're up here for, right? In my opinion, in my humble opinion, to fix flooding, it starts with basin studies. To develop an all-inclusive capital improvement drainage plan, because if you don't have a plan, you're just kind of willy-nilly going along based off folks coming up here and saying, hey, I got a problem here and I got a problem there, and you put it on your list. But if you got a plan, well, you can get things done better. If you understand basin studies like I do, because I've been working with stormwater for 25 years, you know this. And you know how changes in a basin from developments, capital improvement projects, something I coin is Band-Aid projects. You know how these things that are done in these basins can impact flooding in the watershed as a whole. And I'll give you a good example of that. In Escambia County, I'm not going to give you the specifics of it, but they concreted in a ditch, lined the ditch with concrete because residents were having problems with the grass ditch. You know, water was standing in it. They couldn't get to it with maintenance. What that did is that it increased the stormwater flow rate and the velocities into a creek. Well, that was one of the reasons that it caused flooding in the neighborhood down gradient outside the 100-year floodplain. That's only one reason, but it was a Band-Aid project. And my time's up, but point being is you need to start doing basin studies and let the people know about them, because there's power in knowledge, and your people need to be knowledgeable.
Go ahead. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak in our public forum after her? Okay.
I'm sorry.
May have you signed up on the wrong sheet, but we'll get you right after her if you'll step up. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Laura Fowler from Pace. I just was listening to Miss Pavlik with the developer that bought the land behind her house and how she is afraid, and that the same thing happened to me and so many other people. That when you buy land, that you have to be concerned about what your neighbor is going to do, and that you can't trust that your neighbor will have to follow the zoning laws. And I don't know if any of you watched the zoning board meeting from last Thursday night. It goes till like 11 at night. These poor people, some of them have to stay there just to say, hey, I don't want this next to my house. And they have to come again. They're going to have to come again tonight and say, hey, I don't want this next to my house. And sometimes they do that. They stay till 11 o'clock twice. And then they still have to have that next to their house. And I just don't think that's right, that they have to do that. And so I would like to think about how we could rechange how zoning is done in this county. And I know it's probably not something on anyone's mind, but if we could just get a developer, if he wants to change the zoning, anyone wants to change the zoning, get their neighbor's permission first, and then drag everyone to a meeting on the outside who are concerned, and not make people have to be concerned that their investment, their quality of life, their dream home will be ruined, and that they have to be the ones that go fight to save it, rather than the developer who wants to do the changing should have to be the one to convince their neighbors, hey, I have a good plan here, and I want to make it nice for you, and maybe I could compensate you, and you'd be willing to let me do this if I compensate you a certain amount. And that way the burden is on the person that wants to make the change, rather than the person, hey, I bought my home, I want to defend, I have to do the defending, stay at late night twice. I don't think that's right. So there's two, I can't be here tonight to talk about two of the the things on there. One of them is on Garson Point Road, and it's right next to where I go to church. And they want to change it from HCD to M1, which is restricted industrial. And honestly, it doesn't sound that bad. He wants to put in some, warehouse units. But all that concerns me is the fact that if he sells that property on that zoning, and the next person, isn't doing what he says, and that's what I'd be concerned about that one. And we do go to church. The church is, it's quite a little church out in the country. Just don't want something major industrial thing next to it. The other one is on Tunnel Road in Quintet, which is right near where I live. I think it would be, we don't need to bring more commercial out to the country. It ruins the country. I know he was offered to make it a neighborhood commercial, and he refused that offer. Neighborhood commercial is a lot less harmful impact on people who live, and this is next to people's houses. You don't put commercial next to people's houses. Neighborhood commercial is there for the purpose to allow it's a busy road. You don't want to have a lot of, someone might not want to live on a busy road, but yet there are houses around, so you have a neighborhood commercial, not HCD. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, we're going to let you go ahead and go because you've been sitting here since the beginning. So if you'll go ahead and step up. If you'll please give your name and city.
My name is Pauline Grimes. Pauline Grimes, I live in Milton. I said the builders, last time have all to say, why are there not impact fees and control zoning? A man wanted to build a campsite on Glade a few years ago and found out it was wetland, and he had to build on stilts, they told him. What happened to that law? When it rained, the water would go under where they built. Now the houses are built up, and the poor house next door gets flooded. I hear I'm in a flood zone now. The man across the street lost his shed because it flooded. He had to get loads of dirt in there. When Ivan hit, I was told I was in a very low flood zone. I talked to a lady at Walmart the other day. She lives on Bell Lane. I said, you know, they're going to clear all that land on Bell Lane. She says, oh no. A friend saw 3 baby deer at Bell Lane. I said, where are they all going to go? The bears you see more of because their habitat is being destroyed. When will the nightmare end? We will look like New York City or Vegas. I may be forced to move because my insurance could go up. And I live in the flood zone now, and I live on Social Security. Doesn't anyone care about the animals or traffic? A lady on Woodbine said she so hard to turn to a right because the traffic is horrible. When is the madness going to stop? It's okay to build, but my word, they are overbuilding. And it boils down to money. For the love of money is the root of all evil. Matthew 19:23, it is hard for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven.
Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, sir.
How you doing? My name's Stan Jandura, Precinct 30, and I support what Diane Warner just mentioned. If you remember, I was here Monday talking to you about what the Supervisor of Elections group is doing. I mentioned to you E-Verify. They want to remove that as a responsibility for poll workers. Now, they had 6 things they wanted to accomplish in this next session. Steve Terrell and Diane Warner addressed these issues, some of these issues, at the legislative conference a couple days ago. Okay, so we are talking to the legislators, and we don't know what the legislation is going to be, but E-Verify, remove that, or some of the other. There's only, out of the 6, there's only one that they have on there that we kind of support, and that is protect the poll workers. But that's their last item. Everything else is way out, okay? So yes, I support what Diane is asking you. Resolution from you unanimously to say we need to make sure that there are citizens to vote. We need to make sure, because it's happening. It's happening at the border. They're giving Social Security cards. You can get a driver's license. You get a $2,200 stipend. All this other good stuff. Well, we can't control everything, but we can control where our county stands. Yes, we want hand counting. That is also your right to do. And I believe that only, and let me say it this way, Shasta County had gone against, this is in California, had gone against the governor over there. Basically, they started saying, we're doing hand counting, and it's a fight. Well, it's going to be a fight here also. And if a resolution from you shows that we want to fight, our next question for you will be, where do you want to save money? Hand counting will do that. You have the power of the purse. So you have a choice on what you spend your money on, our money on. So yes, these 2 items on, out of the 16 other ones that we could go, these are the ones that we'd like a resolution on. And yes, we will forward you one. But it's up to you. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Go ahead.
George Oatsma, Pace, Florida. I'll stand in support of Dan Warner and Stan Jahan for the same reasons. I'm just skeptical of the machines. If you've ever seen someone or heard someone have their identity stolen or anything else having to do with the computers like pipelines shut down with ransomware and hospitals, their data stolen for ransomware. What would make you think they couldn't do something to the computer? My belief is the computer obviously isn't the criminal, it's the person operating the computer and behind the scenes. And in regard to the zoning, in my mind, yes, there's property rights. Anybody who's going to live on that property, if they want to do something with it, that's what I think of as property rights. I like to insert the word digestion versus development. Development is when you create something you want more of, you want to stay there. But so often I've seen neighborhoods, and you can go to Pensacola nearby and see it. They develop a neighborhood, they call it, but then everybody wants to move out, and as soon as the first 30-year mortgage is up, the neighborhood is totally turned over. I can show you one after the other. And the basic reason for that is small lot sizes. I used to live in Brownsville, and yeah, a house would burn down, and then the new setbacks would be such that you could put a phone booth on the lot. So the lot would sit there. The county would eventually have to come in and tear down the house because now the person doesn't have any money because he can't sell it, because he can't build a house on it, because it burned down. Round and round you go. And the neighbors next door ain't going to want to buy it for any real money because they can't do anything much with it either. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir. I have someone signed up on the agenda sheet. It says impact fees. Okay, I assume you're wanting to speak during public forum? Okay. All right, you,
Morning,
and then,
gentlemen.
hold on just a moment, sir. You and then Ms. Major, and is there anybody else that wishes to speak during public forum? Okay, so Ms. Major, you'll be the last. Go ahead, sir.
My name's Peter Branch. I'm from Navarre. Impact fees, I'd like to speak about them. I think that it would be wise to put the impact fees in the permit process. Therefore, anyone that's wanting to build pays for the infrastructure they'll be using up front. Any potential resident or commercial entity would therefore have a stakehold that would be responsible, as opposed to $250 fee for a permit, which they can flip out like they do all the time. We need to get the revenue prior to the building. That way, all of our systems, sewer, water, roads, schools, can use that money while the development or the entity is being built. I worked with a representative in West Virginia on impact fees back in the late 90s because the overgrowth was just amazing, and we couldn't not afford not to do it. But putting it on the end of the bill, so to speak, does exactly what Mr. Henry said it does. It impacts the resident or the business at the end, which it shouldn't. It should be at the beginning in order to, if you're going to build, you're going to build. If you're going to sit around on a piece of land and just get cheap taxes, that's not what this should be about. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Branch. I would recommend if you can be back here at 1 o'clock today, we'll have a revenue discussion and we'll be discussing impact fees. Go ahead, sir.
Elizabeth Major, Gulf Breeze. As a member of the League of Women Voters of the Pensacola Bay Area, I usually attend these meetings as an observer and try not to speak. I will write letters under my own name and not under the League to express my own opinion. But I must say that we observe these meetings, we observe elections, we work with election officials, and we are fully confident that our election machines are valid, that our elections are clear and honest and open, And paper ballots are not. The state laws govern elections, not county laws. But I just have to say I have great respect and trust in our elections.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, that concludes public forum. I've got 9:12. We'll be back at 9:30 a.m. for the regular commission meeting. All right, if everyone would please take their seats. It is Thursday, October 26, 2023. I've got 9:31 a.m. We're here for a regular Board of County Commissioners meeting. If anyone has an electronic device, if you'll please put that on silent or vibrate so it doesn't disturb the meeting today. Thank you. As always, we start our meetings with prayer and a pledge. We've got Pastor Dan Libby from West Florida Baptist Church here this morning. He's going to lead us in the prayer, and I'll lead us in the pledge. If everyone will please stand. Pastor, if you'll just push the button at the base of the microphone. There you go.
Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for your blessings on not only our country, Father, but our county and, Father, our city here. Father, I just pray that you would bless this time as our leaders meet, gather, and, Father, as they make decisions that would impact our communities. Lord, I pray that your will would be done. That, Father, they wouldn't make a decision without asking you first, Father, if that's what you decide that they want, Father. And I pray that, God, you would bless our citizens, Father, that you would help them to rally around your word and Lord, make decisions based on it and not their own thoughts, Father. We thank you so much for your Son, Jesus, that died on the cross to pay for our sins 2,000 years ago. We pray that this time would honor you and him. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. If you'll please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor, thank you for being here this morning. We appreciate that. All right, we'll start first with agenda approval. I'll start to my right. Commissioner Smith, are there any changes, sir?
No, sir.
Commissioner Calkins?
No change, Mr. Chair.
And Commissioner
No
Eddy?
change, sir.
All right, so we'll accept the agenda as presented. First order of business then, I've got a commissioner item here. As some of you know, we have Swenson Park in the south end of the county in the Santa Rosa Shores neighborhood. It's been under construction for a while. We had a number of delays. We have a ribbon cutting scheduled for that, but being that it was a park with a number of kids in that neighborhood, we were trying to do that ribbon cutting where the kids would be home from school and could be part of that ribbon cutting. So I was requesting at the board on November 6th committee meeting, instead of starting public forum at 4:30 and going to 4:30 to 5:30 like normal, that we just push that meeting 1 hour back to 5:30. That would give everyone an opportunity to be at the ribbon cutting and still make it back up here to Milton in time for the meeting. Are there any concerns or from the board from doing that? Just pushing it back an hour? Yep. I see heads nodding. We're good? All right, and staff can go ahead and advertise that way, and we'll change that meeting. Up next, we've got one proclamation, but it actually applies to two organizations. We'll go ahead and read this off to this morning. Both of these businesses received Exceptional Employer of the Year, and they were awarded that at the 2023 Disability Employment Awareness Celebration in Tallahassee back on October 23rd. Whereas in 1988, Congress expanded the week and christened the month of October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And whereas the U.S. Department of Labor announced that in recognition of National Disability Employment Awareness Month 2023, Advancing Access and Equity, Then, Now, and Next, has been chosen as this year's theme, which honors the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, the first federal legislation to address access and equity for people with disabilities. And whereas a diverse workforce creates opportunity for growth and helps toward building a stronger economy for our county, and whereas our residents and disabilities deserve the right to live independently, enjoy self-determination, and to be treated equally in the workplace. And whereas Florida's Division of Vocational Rehabilitation and Division of Blind Services within the Department of Education and the Agency for Persons with Disabilities assist people with disabilities so that they may become employed. And whereas these state organizations have an overwhelming impact on the lives of many of Florida citizens with disabilities by offering services including job placement assistance, training, support services, and job coaching. Whereas Innisfree Hotel and Perfect Blend Coffee Company have both been named an Exceptional Employer of the Year for hiring and retaining people with disabilities as part of its workforce and will receive the 2023 Exceptional Employer Award on October 23, 2023, at the 2023 Disability Employment Awareness Celebration in Tallahassee. And Santa Rosa County is proud to be the home of Innisfree Hotel Corporation location. Whereas the County of Santa Rosa joins the rest of Florida in recognizing the contributions of the 3.5 million Floridians with disabilities by celebrating October 2023 as Disability Employment Awareness Month. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Santa Rosa County, Florida, that they do hereby proclaim and recognize the month of October as Disability Employment Awareness Month, passed and adopted by the Board of County Commissioners on this 26th day of 2023 and signed by me, Chairman. Thank you to these two businesses for being part of the community and for providing employment to people that otherwise oftentimes are left out. You know, I think that the term is reasonable accommodations that are put out there, and there's a lot of businesses that are scared to hire folks that are that have challenges, whether it be developmental or physical challenges. And I would just encourage, you know, all businesses to work with Miracle League and other folks out there to see if there are people that are good, would make great employees for a number of businesses. Reach out to Art Gateway and organizations like that and see if you have a local business out there, if you're a business owner, please reach out to these organizations and see if there's an opportunity to hire these folks. They want to prove their abilities, they want to prove their self-worth, and I can assure you that oftentimes these will be some of the best employees you'll ever have. Be great members of your team. So do we have anyone here from Innisfree this morning? All right. If you want to come up and do you have anything to add? Or if you'd like to speak, you're more than welcome. Just push the button at the base of the microphone there.
We just want to say thank you for recognizing us as a company, and that's all.
There you go.
Do I got it okay? Okay. I'm Debbie Trokey from Vocational Rehabilitation, and not only do we appreciate all that you have done for our citizens, but also I'd like to remind you that vocational rehabilitation will help anyone that is disabled and needs and wants to work. We pay for graduate school, we pay for undergraduate school, we'll pay for technical schooling. So if you have someone that is disabled and is over the age of 14, and needs assistance, please contact your vocational rehabilitation office and help and get them help so that they're prepared for the workforce. Thank you.
Excellent. Do we have anyone here from Perfect Blend Coffee Company? No? Okay. If you want to step up, we'll actually come down there and we'll take a photograph with you.
Okay. They take their picture.
Do I need that?
No.
No.
They'll take it.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Yeah, it was quiet. All right, up next, our clerk of court, Mr. Don Spencer, is going to provide us with a little presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to let the board know on how much we're going to return back to the county this year. This year, we're going to return $1,250,714.38 back to the county. We would like to let the county know that we have upgraded our payroll system, our finance system in finance with Central Square. The cost on this upgrade is $125,000, which includes an $86,000 discount we were able to work with Central Square to give us off the original price. This will allow our employees and the county employees to have access to their payroll stubs online rather than getting it through the email like Lori Loughlin has to send them. Half of them don't get that email. She has to resend it again, so that'll take a lot of load off our employee. But the county staff will be able to have access online to see their pay stubs. And on the money that we're refunding back to the county, if they agree to give us $125,000 back to pay for this upgrade, I would like the balance to be used towards roads and bridges on the infrastructure and flooding that's going on with the county to help with that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. We appreciate you giving us that update. Appreciate what you and your office do, and particularly that effort to help the county employees and streamline that process there. So thank you very much. Up next, we have a vacation request by Ruth Esser to vacate an easement between Joyce Lane and Highway 87. I was recently made aware that the applicant would like to continue that to December 14th at 9:30. They're currently working with FDOT on some issues and just the process of working with the state. They're not prepared to handle that issue this morning. So are there any concerns from the board, or can we continue that to December 14th at 9:30? Okay, seeing no concerns, we'll go ahead and I'll move without objection to continue the vacation request by Ruth Esser to the December 14th meeting at 9:30 a.m. And do so without objection. All right, on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions or concerns with the consent agenda as presented? All right, seeing none, consent agenda is approved without objection. As far as the regular agenda is concerned, we've got Operations Committee, Public Safety. Commissioner Smith?
This is the amendment to lifeguard EMS agreement. Commissioner Eddington, you had some questions, and I'm thinking that you had them covered. I'm just going to open up the floor to discussion on this.
Yes, sir. I met with Dwayne yesterday for about 2.5 hours. He answered all my questions. Very good. And I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Everything that we're looking at.
Okay. Do we have any discussion amongst the citizens? Okay.
I believe we've got some folks from Lifeguard Ambulance here this morning.
Okay.
In case they
So
wanted
if we want to, okay.
If there were any questions for them or if they had anything to say. Go ahead, Commissioner Parker.
Thank you.
Y'all are good? Okay. Go ahead.
I didn't have any concerns Monday because I know Brad said that we would basically cover it today. I haven't delved into it, but I was contacted by one of our fire chiefs, and he had concerns that this had not been vetted through the Fire Chiefs Association, that there had not been a discussion about it. There's also concerns from a few fire chiefs that reached out to me this week because they're curious about budget implications that could come up, possibly, or restrictions in the future due to the bill that will cap millage that Senator Broxton's introducing to try to relieve some property tax costs for folks. That coupled with the fact that even by Senator Broxton's statement, I believe is roughly 70% of the calls that our fire service runs are medical related. It was asked if this could be discussed with those stakeholders, with the fire chiefs, so that they could talk with lifeguard about this before our board took action to modify it. The concern is that this could reduce the number of ambulances that are available in the county at any particular time. So I'm absolutely, I like that option, but I'm open to hear today if that is a legitimate concern, or if that wouldn't be the instance. And before I relinquish the mic, I'll say I was fully prepared, and still am, to sing the accolades of the staff members, the frontline workers, the paramedics, and EMS folks that ride the ambulances. A couple months ago, one of my family members had to receive emergency medical treatment and a transport in one of your ambulances, and thank God they were Johnny on the spot. They were there quick, and so I remember that day I almost called Brad and said, "Hey, whatever money we got to give them, let's get more ambulances on the road," because that's basically what we have is a hybrid model. We pay you if we want more service. And I can tell you that if it was any one of y'all's spouses or children, I think you would say that's far more important than most things the county spends money on. Infrastructure is important, but I'll deal with a pothole if it means, my mom or dad getting care while they're having a heart attack or a stroke. And so I fully stand behind that opinion of wanting to help them make sure that we have the resources they need on the road. But I told that chief that I would bring that up this morning. So if someone from either lifeguard or Brad could address that, that would be appreciative and feel comfortable with the item.
Sure, Dwayne is here, and he's the regional director, so I'll let him address any that he wants. I will say that I've had discussions with probably 6 fire chiefs in the last week, and none have addressed it with me, which they've talked about many other topics, so that is a little concerning that they didn't just reach out directly to me. And our public safety director and our communication chiefs attends monthly meetings with them. We had discussed this, I know for a fact, with the fire department when we did the original contract, and we told them that after a year we're going to review it, and that we would continue to track our compliance, and we would determine if we were going to go back to a compliance model versus a minimum staffing model, and that's what we have done. And if you look at the data, and Scott and Tom is here and they can address that, but I believe since January of this year they have missed 1 month of compliance, 2 months of compliance in the rule, and based on the model, the difference is that this time our recommendation is if we go back to the compliance model, we're going to attach fees to it, and for non-compliance, and those 2, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Scott can correct me if I'm wrong, with like $8,000 fine for those months. So it's not like we're going back to the original model where there was no penalties attached to non-compliance, but even with their staffing model, minimum staffing, as the contract required, and they have had substantial fees for non-compliance because nationwide there is a shortage of paramedics, and we've blended the BLS model, so they've had some monetary penalties from the current contract. We plan to have monetary penalties if they don't meet compliance in what we presented in the backup for Monday's meeting today. So I'll turn over to Dwayne, and if we want to have more discussion, we can bring Scott and Tom up as well.
Yeah, good morning. I would just tell you, and I think I've said before, historically, anything we do from an ambulance side of the fence, I'm very, very big on meeting with Brad, Scott, Tom, making sure that we are all in agreement with what we're doing, to make sure everybody's on the same page all the time. So we don't arbitrarily make changes to our deployment or anything like that without discussions with them to make sure everybody's on board. And it's in the best interest of the county. And if we don't all agree, we don't do it. We figure out some other path. With this right here, I want you to know that there's nobody decreasing service or, we're going to change to this model and now we're not going to put enough trucks up to handle the system, that sort of thing. None of that is in play here. This is a matter of which way do we measure the performance of the ambulance service here? And as Brad noted, you know, we tried the minimum staffing model to see, because we had been under the response time model for a long period of time. So we tried something different to see if it would work here, to see if it would work better. I think Brad's preference has always been the response time model that we've been under. That's what we've all been used to, but it's like, let's try something else. Let's see how it works. And although that hadn't been like a big failure, we all agree that moving back to this and establishing the penalty structure that's in it holds us accountable to make sure we're doing what we should do. Now, are we going to have times where there's call surge? Absolutely. You know, at the end of the day, there's going to be times where you need 3 more ambulances than you have, because you have an abundance of 911 calls coming in at one time. So that happens. It happens sometimes. We try to avoid that as much as possible, and we try to base our deployment off of historical data. You know, what is the call volume over time, by time of day, by day of week? We all look at that and like I said, all agree on what do we feel like we need up every day to adequately handle the system in terms of how many calls we predict we're going to get. So there's no decrease in service here whatsoever, but the response time compliance model does, we all agree, work better for Santa Rosa, and so that's the only reason we're wanting to move back to it. But the only addition is that is different from historical is now it has a penalty structure built in it, which holds us accountable. And I can assure you all, just the close relationships we all have from a public safety perspective, if there was not enough trucks on the road, if I was in Alabama, Scott Markell would ring my phone and let me know at 5 o'clock in the morning, if needed, that there's a problem and I need to fix it. And you know, he's did that in the past. There's been hiccups in the past because, you know, of a scheduling problem or people calling off, presented some challenges. Scott is very astute at noticing that, and if he don't get some immediate resolution, he'll pick up the phone and call me. So there's that in the background as well, and it's just due to the way we all work together very well, and the system we've built here over time. We're all kind of integrated together and work together on everything we do. So I'll pause there, but happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Dwayne, just for a layman like me, how does this affect, from the outside looking in? Right now, I guess we're at a minimum staffing model. Can you just give us a layman's version of what that means versus what we're asking to change? Because I'm just old East Milton boy, but I'm having a hard time understanding. I can understand the measure of metric performances, but I don't think today the only change is a measure of metrics performance, is it? Or am I wrong? Can you help us understand today what it is versus what will change? I mean, I'm curious to why one of the fire chiefs for one of the largest districts in the county would call with a concern, and it could be nothing. He just had stated, you know, hey, this had not been a discussion point, maybe difference of opinion, maybe he missed that meeting. Again, I'm relaying it to somebody that wasn't able to be at the meeting today, and said he had only became aware of it because of the agenda. Will that affect the number of ambulances on the road, I guess, is what I'm asking? Or
So we sat down previously when we started considering a trial period for the minimum staffing model. We sat down and looked, and even before that, we all know, just between Brad and I, you know, we know how many ambulances we need in the system each day to be successful. So the number of ambulances in the system is not changing. We still know exactly what those numbers are and where the ambulance deployment needs to be on a daily basis. So we're not going from, well, Lifeguard's putting up 13 trucks a day today, and now they're going to put up 7. You know, that's not happening. It's just a shift in the way we're measuring the performance of the system. And so we're going back to the compliance of of per call compliance, rural versus urban each day versus judging based just off how many trucks you have in the system. Does that make sense?
It does, and I feel like even I can follow that. I hesitantly say I'm assuming if we're making this change again. I don't know if this was because we talked about a review. Forgive my bluntness. I feel like if lifeguard is good with this, so to speak, then I would think from the and again, please, I have sung your accolades, and I am so thankful to have lifeguard in this county and that we are not government subsidy EMS. So please don't take it that way. I'm just trying to answer the questions I said I would ask. I'm assuming that there is a possibility there could be less ambulances on the road. I think if I'm understanding your response, it would be that if you gauge it, sometimes there's maybe not necessarily use the number 13. So maybe if it's not necessary to have 13 and lifeguard only want to run 11, I'm sorry to kind of bring this up at the midnight hour, but when I received the phone call this morning, literally as I pulled into the parking lot, I said, I don't really we haven't had any discussion on it because we said Monday we were going to have the discussion today. So I apologize if I'm kind of behind the 8 ball on this.
So first I would say I've always been willing to sit down with any fire chief in the county that wants to discuss things, talk about things, better understand things. I have no issue sitting down with whoever, so I want to make that clear because I want everybody to be on the same page from a understanding piece as it relates to what we're doing and what we're changing. There is no intent, has never been an intent in my mind, and I'm sure Brad can back me up here, to alter or change the way we're doing things fundamentally in terms of deployment that we're putting up to make sure we're able to be successful every day based off the number of 911 calls that come in. We were under this type of model for 15 years-ish, somewhere around there. We never had those type of issues with deployment during that time. I think in the 15 years, we probably, I think we missed compliance twice in a 15-year period. And that's just due to the communication we have and so many eyes being on this every day throughout the day to make sure everything's going like it should. So, from a Scott perspective and dispatch, he knows what we're supposed to have up every day. He keeps track of that as it goes throughout the day. And when we're approaching shift change, making sure that we're getting trucks swapped out and other trucks are getting in service, so we keep the deployment up. And that's why I bring up if there's ever a hiccup locally that's not fixed immediately, that's why I say he picks up the phone and calls me, and I'll do whatever I need to do to fix it. But no changes whatsoever in terms of our mindset as it relates to now we changed to response time compliance. So we, like you said, we put 11 up instead of 13. That's not going to happen. Not going to happen. We're going to make sure, just like we always have, that there's enough ambulances in the system to take care of the call volume, understanding that there's going to be times of call surge, which I know you're familiar with. So we're going to have that happen some, but we're going to put up enough trucks every day to take care of the predicted call volume based off historical data.
Let me, just since I've put my big toe in front of the tire, so to speak, during this meeting, and again, I preface that with, I literally, I don't know how you could be any more, just sort of more humbled and indebted than when, recently have had a family member in a critical care situation that had to ride in the back of one of your ambulances. I want to ask in the same breath, are you comfortable? And I say with where we're at, again, it's hard to dig up all the details in your memory from a year ago, but obviously the system we agreed on, where we have a X number of dollar amount that we provide, are you comfortable with that still, or do you feel like, and this is where I preface it, if there's ever a time where you say, hey, look, we need to elevate that and we could use more money from the county, I'm kind of laying the veil out there right now, and I'm only one, but I would just ask you to tell me if you thought that, because I'm not kidding you. I remember, again, I understand spikes and first responder things, and I know what it's like to look at the CAD and have priority one calls that are holding because we're all busy. But you just feel so vulnerable when it's one of your loved ones that are waiting. It's like, hey, if we need to do more, then let me know. Because when you're kind of in that vulnerability position, you're really willing to help out even more. So that would be really my last question is, are you comfortable there, or would you see a benefit if we needed to look at, allocating more funding for an increased service, or is our service where it needs to be? It was that day. I have no complaints. I just...
Mr. Chairman, or Commissioner Parker, I'll address that because he's probably a little nervous to answer that. We have had discussions with myself and Devan, with Dwayne, and discussed that. And our opinion was we just put out the contract. But he did indicate to us that they were having difficulty with staffing, with competing neighbors increasing their costs, their hourly cost or hourly salary for paramedics. And we said, Dwayne, you literally just bid this, and we're not comfortable taking it back to the board. So I would say if the board is comfortable and Dwayne is in agreement, we can have a meeting with the fire chiefs. We can have that further discussion on that, and we can come back at the next meeting or December meeting with that information, if that's what you desire. We do not want the fire chiefs to be uncomfortable, but I will tell you that Scott Markell sitting in the back, he's involved with this on a daily basis. I would ask that if we decide to stay with the minimum staffing model, that we relieve him and his staff of all the duty of tracking the compliance. Because if we're comfortable where we're just saying, well, minimum staffing is good for us, well, then let's take all the burden off of our staff of tracking the compliance. Because the reason why we wrote the original contract is we wanted a numerical number to say 90% of the time, 9 out of 10 times, our ambulance is on scene within the specified standard. So we've continued to track that because that's the only way we could say if the model was working or not. And we have met that with the exception of 2 times in the rule zone. So that's what I would offer. We definitely want our first responders to be behind anything that we do. It is a little concerning, and I talked to one even this morning and did not mention this, but I'll handle that side.
Brad, I will say this, and I'm sorry for all you guys that it may have took me a few minutes to get there, but the way you explained it just then, I'll be honest with you, I could get behind more of a performance metric tracking than like you said, because look, outside of this, something not to do with the county, I've already vented frustrations to do with government today, and it had to do with lack of accountability and metrics. So really, you could have minimum staffing, but that's still, like you said, if we weren't tracking it, that could actually lead to complacency and less performance. So I'm comfortable with that. I greatly respect your relationship with the fire chiefs, and I respect Scott and Tom and their recommendations, and I really feel like if there was an issue, they would come forward. Again, this was something that was asked of me at the midnight hour, and I think it's good that we've kind of fleshed it out. I'm comfortable with moving forward, but I will say this, Dwayne, I will tell you that because I understand, yes, it may only be a year, and that could be that is a short time in government, but things can dynamically change, especially with the workforce. We've seen it ourselves in struggles. The sheriff's office has seen it. We hear about it. If you're having problems under the current guidelines and you feel like an increase is needed to retain or attract staff, I can only speak for myself. I would gladly, if that's where lifeguard's at, schedule a meeting with me, or we can meet at the next Fire Chiefs Association. I'd love to go. We could sit down with them. They can talk about anything. And then if you look at that and I feel like it's reasonable, I tell you that I'll bring forward to the board at least a request that we meet that, because we've done it for the sheriff for 7 years. I think 6 out of 7 we've been able to actually get him increases, and we did it for the same metrics. But quite frankly, there's that guy will tell you jokingly, there's a lot of calls that the green uniform rolls up to that we say we need EMS, and we need those qualified paramedics and EMTs. And so if that's something you're struggling with, I want to make sure that we do what we can to be that stopgap for our citizens. So I just encourage you, please, if that is a concern, reach out to me, get with Brad. We'll meet with the fire chiefs and all. But I don't want to delay this. I feel like the questions that were given to me, that we were able to flesh through it, I feel comfortable with that. I appreciate that, Brad. And again, I hope that was never taken as adversarial or critical. It was just simply to try to flesh out what we were doing, and especially on a layman's terms. So thank you for being here, Dwayne, and I'll acknowledge Mr. Roach, the founder. Thank you for being here as well.
Gentlemen, John Roach, Gulf Breeze, Florida. I just want to let you know I've been involved in the ambulance and EMS industry in Santa Rosa County for more than 40 years. And as a citizen whose children and grandchildren live in Santa Rosa County, it is most important for me to know that when one of them need an ambulance or call 911, that an ambulance shows up as quickly as possible. I think what Lifeguard is trying to achieve here is they have no desire to reduce the amount of ambulances. They have enough ambulances, there's just not enough people. Whether you go to the airlines or your restaurants, there's just not enough people anymore. And the contract requirement changed from response time requirement to minimum staffing, but sometimes there's just not enough staff to do it. And so again, I've got a commitment from them that their desire is not to reduce. They still want to put up as many trucks as they possibly can every day. There's just not enough paramedics and EMTs to fill the slots. You know, over the years, there's probably more paramedics working in hospitals today than there are working on the ambulance service. You know, because and paramedics, they come here and then they end up going to the fire departments. They go to the hospitals, and so Lifeguard has spent millions of dollars just in the last couple of years, probably increasing salaries more than 50%. You know, just trying to keep up. But as soon as they do that, everybody else does it, and then it just gets into this war, which has created all of the issues that we have. But as a citizen, know that I'm there. I want to make sure that we have the very best ambulance service. And they have committed to me that it is not their desire to cut trucks. It's just that they cannot staff the amount of trucks that the current contract, when it changed from response time requirement to minimum staffing requirement. So I don't know if that kind of helps answer some of the questions that you had, or.
Okay. Oh, yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. I appreciate Commissioner Parker for addressing some issues that are very important. I think this is a very good discussion. The fire chiefs are extremely important. I got to tell you, people think we have a tough job. Y'all have a hard job because you're dealing with life and death. And I want to thank you all so much for what you do. I also want to say that I absolutely will support Commissioner Parker and him meeting with the fire chiefs and y'all. And, 5 minutes, 2 minutes can be the difference between life and death. And we are having staffing issues through all the other areas. And this is true public safety. This is absolutely crucial and important. And this is our job as county commissioners to protect the citizens as much as we can. So I very much appreciate this discussion. I will be in full support of getting y'all what you need to be able to get the staff that you need to where, 5 minutes can save lives. And so thank you so much for what you do. And that's all I want to say.
Chairman, like I said yesterday, I talked to Dwayne for two and a half hours, I guess. Then I talked to Tom, I talked to Scott about the same stuff. And I realized it is hard to staff these units. And like the gentleman said, a lot of my friends in Chattanooga, paramedics, has quit and went to the hospital working. It's hard to get paramedics to stay on ambulance if they can go somewhere else and make more money. And I know they're having a hard time staffing right now. And we're gonna have to do something to help, some way, to get some good paramedics on these units. We might have to put Brad back on. Well, Brad can work part-time, but I'm there to support you in any way I can. Like I said yesterday, I worked on the ambulance before. I got my EMT in Tennessee. I don't have it in Florida. Would I want to go back for Florida? No. I'm too old. But I will help you in any way I can. Any of your people on the scene, if I'm there, if I can help, I'll be glad to help. All you got to do is come and ask. And I believe any one of these guys will sit and talk to you at any time. You know my door's open.
Yes, sir.
Anytime. Any of your people want to come by, they're welcome. I'm 2 days in the bar. If you want to come down there, you're welcome. I appreciate what y'all do.
Yes, sir.
All right.
In closing, I would just say thanks for bringing this up. I appreciate the discussion as well, and I'll get with Brad. We'll put some stuff together and schedule some meetings, but just thank you very much for at least acknowledging the fact that at the end of the day, there is a shortage and we've got to figure our best path forward. And I think that does kind of take all of us putting our heads together to figure out the best path. So thanks for that, and we'll circle back up with you.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. And what I'll wrap this up, but, you know, I can imagine you are having personnel problems. I remember as a youngster getting out of high school and being in college, I remember thinking that EMT would be a cool job, and then they had this a wreck right down there in Pensacola where a bunch of teenagers had gone onto a oak tree, and it was like 7 kids, and they hit it at such a speed that they were all over this golf course. So at that point, I realized, no, I do not want to be an EMT because I do not have the fortitude to handle that type of scenery, because especially when it's involving children. And I want to give those accolades to those gentlemen. They are true heroes for being able to do such and handle such things. And not only are you dealing with you know, your personnel issues, you also have people that have to deal with the mental effects of that. And so, you know, I couldn't imagine being a business owner or being somebody that runs a business having to put up with that unique dynamic that's involved in the business model. So, and I want to also push out that I also appreciate that we have the former head of the EOC on this dais, and that's, you know, I've always deferred to Brad for any kind of information, and then on top of that, we have a member of our board that was a former EMT. So, you know, and I didn't want to make you guys think that I was dissing you the other day. I just knew that there was, with the meeting, because I knew that all the information that I had enough. And at this point, I would just like to, so we're all good with pushing this forward as stated. So I will just say, I'll make a motion to move this as it is without objection.
See no objections, so moved.
And thank you.
All right, on to Budget and Finance Management Committee. Commissioner Eddington, the floor is yours, sir.
Yes, sir. We was talking about the bid policy we had. We had 2 bids kicked out, and they want to rebid. I don't see why we should rebid, because I've got the report. I think y'all have looked at it also. The 2 companies did not fill out the paperwork like they should have. And we can talk about it. It's however y'all feel.
Mr. Chairman, this is one of those situations where there was clearly miscommunication, and we can save the taxpayers money because every single one of these people will probably lower their bids because they all know each other's bids. And I think that's a very good situation. And like I said, if it was your house, $100,000, would you pay $15,000 if you had $100,000 in your bank account? That's all you had. And would you pay $15,000 more, or would you rebid and save $15,000? I mean, that's a question I'd like to ask all of you, because people treat government different than their own style, because they think money grows on trees with government. And it's not just us, it's all over the place. I think that if we take piece by piece to save money, that $15,000 can go to a lot of things, and to help with our infrastructure, to help. And it's not just this item. Any opportunity or chance we can get to save money, we need to jump on it. All these, and there was a clear issue here with miscommunication. And it's not going to hurt any of them to have to rebid. And so all it will do is save us and the taxpayers money. And so I'm going to stand strong on this issue. And I also think that all future bids, any opportunity we get on future items to save money, we need to jump on it and take it for the citizens. And just my thoughts.
Mr. Smith?
I don't really think that's a fair question. If I have a roofer that comes to my house, I'm going to look at the scope of work and take that and compare it to the other bids. The scope of work's the most important part. I don't know, a lot of people won't remember these days where the old roofer came up with a big old kettle of tar on the back of his truck. But that I don't want to see pull up to my house, which could very well happen, with a bucket of tar and gravel. So that's why it is very important that we outline the scope of work. And after looking through these, and I'm not going to name names, and I don't want to bring anybody to embarrassment, but the $15,000 could turn into a $25,000 repair or something that comes back and bites us. And that's why we do have these processes in place. We have them in there as tested, tried, and true. So therefore, when I see that somebody comes in there half-cocked, not able, and I know that staff is out there ready to support them and show them exactly what needs to be done, putting it back out there and saying, oh, well, he had a boo-boo, we need to put it out for rebid, we're opening up Pandora's box. I'm not for that. $15,000 on after looking at all of the bids, I'm very comfortable. I'm not going to, at one point I was like, well, yeah, that'd be fine if this guy's going to take the bid that we accepted because his scope of work was outlined properly. Well, he's got to go exactly with what this guy did and give us the $15,000 discount. That's not how I want to do business. Not as a business operator and not as a county. Because again, we've just opened ourselves up to another problem. Here it goes, now we got, something substandard, and then we have the guy that did have the acceptable bid. He comes back to us a few years down the road and says, well, I was here back in October of 23, you turned me down, you went to this other guy, 15,000 saved you 15,000. No, 15,000 cost us another 25. And that's just purely scenario, but that's where I'm going to stand on this. I'm going to stand where we need to stay with the process that we have in place. This kind of stuff, it kind of reeks of a bid rigging situation that I'm not going to, and I know it's not. But when we start picking and choosing winners because somebody came and said, well, I was 15,000 cheaper, and then when I see the bid that you put in, like, well, you could have been 25,000 cheaper for all I'm concerned. You didn't. answer the questions and meet the specs that I needed you to meet. And especially when you have a staff that's willing to give you a step-by-step and hold your hand all the way through the process. I'm not comfortable there. You know, I get it, $15,000 is not something to sneeze at, but I think that 15,000 could turn into something more. And that's where I'm gonna stand on that.
Go ahead, Mr. Calkin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, this is why folks do not trust the government, because a lot of times government wastes money. And I'm gonna tell you, every single one of those roofing companies that put in a bid, they're all reputable companies, every single one. That to diss one and say that they're not is wrong. And I believe every single one, as a matter of fact, the one that the staff went with that's $15,000 more, just got a contract with the bathroom down in the south end within the same month, which I voted for also because they were the only ones that put in the bid, which I also found was kind of strange how only one company put in a bid for, you know, the same thing. So I think these are the issues that come up that we need to truly look at and fight for, save our taxpayers' money, because they add up in the long run. If we nip this one, we nip the next one. And by the way, the person who, you know, ended up getting chosen by staff will most likely lower the price. And I would be okay if staff chose the guy with the lowest price. Because guess what? We'd save 15 grand and we'd save taxpayers for the citizens. So rebidding it will absolutely save the county money. And nobody in their right mind, nobody, and including you would not pay $15,000 more for a roof with the exact same reputable companies. You wouldn't do it in your household. And I don't believe anybody would. So I'm going to stand by this, and I hope we can, you know, look at all future. I think we need we get a lot of stuff, a lot of companies we approve, and it's hard to notice every single one of them. I mean, and staff does do a good job, but we're all not perfect, and but they're trying their best, and so I don't put down any of them. We may agree and disagree on some issues, but this is a clear issue where I told you all at the last meeting, I said, think of it if it was your house. If you had $100,000 in your bank account, and each company, they're all you could Google every single one of these companies. All these companies, they all have good reviews. They all have, they're all excellent companies. There's nothing really different between all of them. And there was a clear miscommunication. That's why you had two of the people object. And that's why I got involved, because I found out that I'm going, wait a minute, we're actually picking companies for more money. I mean, we should go the lowest bid should win. And unless the other company, unless you could really come to us and say this other company provides real quality that will make up for $15,000. If there's a real quality difference, but when you start going, you know, a bid that's when it starts to get to $5,000 more than the next bid, then it starts getting shaky. That's why I said, look at it as if you all had $100,000 and you all were doing your own house. That's all I'm asking. And thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Eddington. So when we talk about price, we talk about doing business and doing contracts. I'm in the retail business. I also do repair work and service, right? And I deal with a lot of contractors as well. In my world, and I think in the world in general, price isn't everything, number one. There's a thing called value. Cheapest is not always best. I think everyone's been down the road of buying, excuse me, Commissioner Calkins, if you have something to say, you can key the mic. There are times that each and every one of us have bought something cheap because we thought we were going to save a couple dollars. And we learned the hard lesson that what we bought was a cheap item. It was cheap. It wasn't less expensive, it was cheap. There are times when you spend a little more, and that little more could be, it's all proportionate based on what the overall price tag is. Where the quality that you're paying for is worth every penny. Frankly, there's times when you buy something that's half the cost, and by the time it breaks down and falls apart, if you just spent twice as much on the correct item, you would have saved money because you'll buy that cheap one again, and you'll buy it 3 times over, and you'll spend more money. Same comes down to service after the sale of an item, right? That support after you purchase something. And it particularly comes into play when you talk about roofing and construction. I'm glad you brought up the idea about, what would I do if I was having my own house re-roofed? Because if I had my own house re-roofed and I just threw it out there, hey, I'm going to call every company and just say, hey, how much to have my house roofed? And I have companies just throw numbers at me, and I don't specify, hey, I want 3-tab. I don't want 3-tab shingles. I want architectural shingles. Or are you going to give me a 25-year warranty or a 10-year warranty? Or are you going to clean up your mess after you're done? Or are you going to leave the old roof laying in my yard? Or are you going to leave nails out for my kids to step on? There's a lot of details, and it's real easy to say cheapest is best. We're going to save the taxpayer some money, but we're not looking at the whole picture. One, when you look at, you have companies that clearly didn't follow the bid directions, 2 of them in particular, the 2 lowest bidders. We've all got the documentation. It's posted out there on the internet for people to see as part of the agenda, where the scope of work that's provided by the county as part of the bid process is just scratched up with information that clearly, one, doesn't make sense, but clearly conflicts what the scope of work and the requirements of the job are. The eave metal shall be 0.032 inches. And then it's just question mark written in handwriting with 0.027 to the side of it. Now, does that mean that the contractor bidding is saying, well, yeah, you're speccing out 0.032, but we're going to give you 0.027, and thereby save you a bunch of money? I mean, just looking at this, it's kind of atrocious. It's not even a scope of work or given back as part of the bid package. But we can talk about saving $15,000 up front, but I can almost guarantee this would have turned into a change order after the fact and said, well, you know what? Yeah, you're right. We won the bid, but we didn't notice you wanted 0.032. It's going to cost you X, and they're going to come back with a change order. So that is not good business, because that opens us up for bid rigging, where we say, well, any company can just bid whatever they want. We'll go with the lowest bidder, and after the fact, you come back to us and we'll make it right, and therefore you'll make more money after the fact. That's terrible business. It takes a tremendous amount more time and energy from staff, which costs the county money. It's not a check you're writing, but it is time and energy and money spent. Now, I totally agree with what staff did on this one. The 2 lowest bids, one just gave an empty sheet, a blank sheet of paper back, and the other one gave a bunch of scratch notes on the county's scope of work. Every other bid that was provided, they followed all of the directions. So you had 2 companies that for whatever reason didn't follow the directions of the bid, and it was a sealed bid. So I would ask you, I heard you say there was a miscommunication, and you said clear miscommunication. Help me and the rest of the board understand what exactly that clear miscommunication was, please.
There was one of the person that put in the bids basically sent a text to one of our staff members. I don't want to say names of the staff members out of respect, but he basically said, "Is that all the bids, or is that all the stuff you need?" And apparently, she wrote back, "Yes, that's, you're good." And so this gentleman apparently thought that he got all his stuff done. Now, I understand that these roofers they're used to going and, writing up an estimate, and then a lot of them, we got about 8 of them, they're not really used to government, a lot of them. Most of them usually, do roofs everywhere. So when you got 8 bids, 9 bids. All I'm saying is no matter what, we will save money if we redo it. And there was clear, apparently the gentleman, and he came in, and the gentleman that didn't get it met with me in the office and explained his side. And so, and I agreed with him that it was the first time I met the gentleman, and I agreed with him, and I thought, this was wrong. Why did, $15,000 is low. The guy's a reputable company, and I looked up all the companies, and I said, they're all pretty good. And I thought about it if it was my house. I said, I wouldn't pay $15,000 more. What I would do is I would rebid everybody, and I would say, any kind of communication issues, I would ask them all the same thing. I would work to try to get the best price with the best quality as I could. And that's what our staff should do with all the companies, and think about it like, hey, let's get the best deal for the taxpayers.
So you answered my question. So I'll ask, you answered my question, so thank you. Let's remember that this was a sealed bid, right? So, and I'll ask Devan to clarify, but I don't know how a staff member receiving a text message, how they could answer that everything looks good and say anything like that, which I know that's not what was said, when they don't see what's bid until the bids are opened if they're sealed bids. But I'll let Devan fill in the public.
The person had text, and we have instructed our staff to no longer text. Everything needs to be done in email. The question was, is my paperwork in? And the staff member did text back and said, yes, your paperwork is in. This was prior to opening the bid, so there was no way to know if it was complete, but just that the paperwork had come through our system, which is a downloadable system. So, that was not anything that a staff member could have done differently, except to clarify that, yes, your paper's in, but I don't know if it's right. I mean, I guess she could have said that. But the other thing I will point out, and that's also included in your packet, the two that did not send in all the paperwork also failed to show up for the pre-bid conference, which is a very important thing if you're going to do business like this. And so, our staff works hard to be sure everything is fair and everybody's treated fairly. And when a bid's opened, we can't call back and say, well, you got a lower bid, but you didn't turn in all your paperwork. That defeats the purpose of a sealed bid. So, if our staff makes a mistake, we'll come and tell you, we made a mistake. And in this case, you can call it a miscommunication, but I think it was a failure of the bidder to understand the process or to spend time understanding the process. My understanding, they'd never bid on a county project before. And our staff is open to help anybody they can, and we've actually, the other bidder that didn't get that was lower than the person who was recommended to be awarded, came in, spent time with staff, and said they understood that they didn't really know exactly how they should have proceeded, and so they were going to take care of it and bid again on other projects and be sure they got it right and attend our pre-bid conferences.
Thank you, Devan. I'll just end on this. Facts matter, and when it comes to staff, if they're following the rules and doing the right thing, I will always have their back. If they make a mistake, we'll address the mistakes. But I am 100% confident in staff's performance on this one, and I will not support rejecting the bids. And I suggest that we continue with the bids as the staff suggested.
Mr. Parker, go ahead.
Thank you. This is that smirk where the little angel says, be good and don't say anything, and then the little devil's like, let them have it. I'm going to do a middle of the road. I'm going to make them both a little appeased. Thank you, Ray, for bringing it up. Quite frankly, before you asked the question, there was nothing in the backup. I had nothing to do off of it. So we're going to play the fun game. Devan and Brad, I'm asking you a direct question. Were you told, and by who were you told, to bring to this board no backup and to put, you recommend denying the bids? Or was that your unilateral decision?
That was a decision I made based on the complaints that we had and.
Complaints from who?
From the contractors that didn't get the awards. And so it seemed to be a problem. So me, I felt like after talking to staff, let's just go ahead and reject the bids and let them start over again. But, as time progressed, that wasn't what it seemed like that the board wanted to do. So that's y'all's decision. But that was my decision.
Well, Devan, I'll tip my hat. I know you're nothing but a gentleman, and I'll leave it at that. This is where I say the middle of the road. Really, I just want to move on through the meeting and get towards lunch. Y'all know that's the way my brain thinks. I wake up and I'm like, what's for lunch and what's for dinner? But I sat here and got ridiculed about the fixes in, big ridding, changing policies during the thing. I'll be honest, this is what this feels like to me. When I have an employee, I saw the text. I literally knew nothing about this before Ray said it, and then Commissioner Calkins brought it up, and so I know Kerry went down there because he's got paperwork over here, so I got a little curious too. I said, well, I'm going to go to procurement. Procurement sent the text message that said, your bid was received. That's exactly what it said. Oh, and then they responded by saying, bids will be opened on this day and time. That's it. I saw the backup that now the public has. I don't care who the names are. You could have it blindly. I thought the same thing. I read all the recommendations from staff. It is this, dude, I feel like double flexing for staff. This is as clear cut as it can be. The difference between if it was my house and I just said, well, hey man, I got your bid. I want to make sure, because you wrote .27 here, but I spec'd out, like, is this clear? Are we on the same page? The difference is at my house, unfortunately, it'd be kind of cool if I got to deal with like $250 million each year, but I don't. And so we have to send out procurements every month, multiple procurements. And part of the integrity in that procurement system is, what about the guys that took the time and effort to make sure that it was abundantly clear? This is not a negative knock. The cool part is, I can say, is I've talked with none of these companies before this meeting. I was told that one of the particular companies was sitting, and we'll stay with the no name and nobody, okay? Was sitting in one of our employees' offices and says, I'm going to call a certain commissioner. I won't name that person either, because they were upset about the way the bids happened. At the end of the day, like, hey, look, the one staff recommended, I don't know who they are either. They actually are in my district, and that's cool. And I've met a few of these other guys. I've met them. It's been months probably since I've talked with them. And that's great. I'm not saying anything negative against any of them, but I can tell you, like, I put on my big boy pants and I have hard discussions. And I would have told the guy, hey man, just make sure you get it right next time. Use it as a learning experience. I understand. Anybody behind the scenes know, I think I get more mad at government than any of these guys. Because maybe not, Colton has to deal with government on different levels, but when you're in business, if you don't hate the government, like I don't know what kind of business you're in, because it is as inefficient at every level. Right now, I hate the state of Florida. I'll go back. I had a great comment. You were wanting impact fees, and I'm like, do you trust politicians? I don't. And so who wants to give them more money, right? I don't even understand that logic. But anyway, this to me would seem like that. It would seem like every time if we got bids and the low bidder or whatever, if a guy didn't do it and he called me and I advocated or whatever, and I went to Devan and we just rejected him, then there is no credibility to the system at all. This system was actually taken up to be a little more streamlined and accountable than what we had been doing with department heads. And hey, the cool part is all this is in the backup, so the whole public can read this. Used to, the department heads just sent out emails for quotes, and now it's really standardized before it ever got to this board. So I agree with Commissioner Wright and probably what my other two colleagues said, but Commissioner Wright was freshest on my mind. This would be the epitome of, if I'm from the outside looking in, as I see this as like, well, we're rigging the bid for the guy that we didn't like, but clearly I'm confused. Hell, I've got a master's degree and I'm confused by the bid. The guy writes .027 ? I don't know. Does that mean he's asking, like, should we use 2.7? Are we using? It's not clear. If you look at the bids, the other ones, they detailed, hey, we're going to strip the shingles off. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We made sure we included the gutters. If you looked at a lot of the bids, they line item the gutters for like the ballpark, like $8,000. Maybe that's where a bulk of it is. I don't know. I'm just saying I'm not dealing with my house. I'm dealing with government. And at some point, like, this is, you know, where we go to keeping our word is, what do we say to the guy that submitted the bid and everything was right? I mean, we say, well, we're trying to save the taxpayers' dollars. Are we saving the taxpayer dollars in that weird roundabout 30,000 foot view of how many frustrating times if I'm in business would I deal with the government if I'm like, I had to deal with this? Because I'm going to tell y'all, look, and y'all got to hear it. If there was a way that I could get licensing without going to the state of Florida, I'd do it, but I can't because they're the only ones that license. If there was a way I could be able to pull a building permit without going to the county, I'd do it. But I can't. Like, you are slave to the government. Kiss the pinky ring. I'm telling you guys, like, you have no idea. I'm as frustrated with government as any of y'all that wear these "we're fed up" and "don't tread on me" shirts. Like, because I have to deal with it in business. I say all that, so I've played nice. I haven't named names. Devan, you're a gentleman. Appreciate that. And here's the thing. I'm going to support staff's recommendation. I think it's out there in the public. I encourage anybody that thinks that we're mishandling funds or throwing money away to go look at all the backup material and then form their own opinion. Not everybody's going to agree. I think overall today the board's kind of been gentlemanly. There hasn't been name calling and all that, and I feel like I've even done pretty good. I listened to the angel that said, don't go crazy. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate you gentlemen standing behind, you know, the integrity of the system. So the last thing I'll say is, yes, I will support Aaron Schaefer Construction getting the bid, but I vehemently support our staff. And let's remember, we praise Jane in public. Procurement and budget are kind of down there in Jane's wing, and I appreciate you. I appreciate the ladies that work for you, and I hate that they have to deal with this on a public stage. But anyway, I appreciate it. So if we want to, this isn't even my item. I don't know whose it is. Ray, I'm going to get off of it. You know where I'm at. I'll be voting for it.
Go ahead.
My name is Peter Branch from Navarre. Was a roofing contractor, general contractor. Specifications are very important. When you're dealing with government, which I have, specifications are outlined. If you don't put your bid in for and adhere to the specifications, then you're going to be kicked out. It's just that simple. These rules are put in place so that you don't have impropriety. Insurance companies, I've worked for all the major ones in the roofing area, a lot of times they will forget in their procurement, let's say the dump fees or something in that area. And you have to bring it up to them that they forgot because they just forgot. They did, or knew, don't know, whatever. The fees went from $15 a ton to $60 a ton, so therefore the bids are going to be screwed up. I would support, I'm not up there, but stay with the process. If the process says kick it out, start over, that's what you do. That's because of the risk management and all that's in consideration with what's going on. Now, if the guy came in at a low bid and he fits all the pigeonholes, hand him the check and get on with it. See you later.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chapman.
It amazes me that just a few weeks ago, James, you were screaming and hollering about doing what you're wanting to do. Sam brought somebody in here on a bid, and you were ballistic. Let me tell you guys something. If the public thinks that they can pull you aside and get you to go against the other four, you need to reevaluate. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. People want the rules to be adhered to. We don't care what the rules are, we want you to follow them. And if somebody will pull you aside in the office and get you to come in here and go against those rules, you need to self-avow.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. In order to make the process better, I'd like to ask Devan, is it a requirement to go to the pre-bid meeting for, and you might not be the right person to ask.
It's not required.
It's not required, okay. That was kind of used against this company. I think we need to make things better, and that's not your policy. I guess that would be maybe a board policy, that maybe we do need to make it a requirement to do, to go to the pre-bid meeting. And my thoughts are is we do have a process, but a lot of these guys aren't. I mean, it just got used against them that they didn't attend the pre-board meeting, and now we know it's not a requirement. And the guy gets a text saying that he all his paperwork, was in, and he thought that he was good when apparently our policy said that he wasn't. So I see his point of view. I also see staff's point of view. I don't think they, did anything wrong or did anything out of order, but I think we need to make our process better, like that, for instance. Make it a requirement that they have, they have to go to these pre-board meetings, and if they don't go, they're kicked off. And that's ways of improving this. As far as, rebidding this, I'm gonna stand by saving the taxpayers $15,000, and I'm not choosing any company. I'm saying rebid, and I think that we'll get better proposals, and that's how to handle it. That's just my opinion, but I will be the one vote. And by the way, if y'all are moving to go with that company, I have nothing against that other company that the staff chose. I have nothing against them, and I think they're an excellent company too. My vote is just against the amount of money that we're paying more to get a roof done. So just my thoughts. Thank you.
I got two things to say. Don't always go with the lowest bidder. That's a mistake. The second thing, I'm going to push this on through. I do not want to rebid. We got a policy, and we need to stick with it. I hope y'all will go along with me without objection. This rebidding stuff is not right. We got a process, let's stay with it. And that's the way I feel.
Ray, before you make your motion, I just want to say, because I think you said words do matter, the term in our manual says lowest responsive bidder. Andrew Hill, Public Works, those kind of things, they get bids too. But it means that if it doesn't meet all the criteria, we don't even consider it. So the actual terminology, because words do matter, is lowest responsive bidder. And anybody can look at it. I ain't got nothing against any of them either. And the guy winning it's in my district, and I don't know who he is. But it's a responsive bid. So that's responsible, and I appreciate it. If you make the motion, I'll be glad to second it, Ray.
I'll make the motion to push it right on through, not to rebid at all.
I'll second it for the award to Aaron Schaefer Construction.
Yes,
Okay.
sir, that'd be fine.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a proper motion and a second to continue with with staff recommendation on the original bidder. Vote on your screen.
Motion passes 4-1. Commissioner Calkins in opposition.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We're going to reconvene the continued public hearing on the LDC. I got 10:50. Is everyone good for about a 10-minute bathroom break? All right, we'll be back. Let's just call it 11 o'clock. We'll be back. right, I got 11:04, so we'll go ahead and get started. We're a few minutes after 11 o'clock. So just a reminder, we're going to go ahead and reconvene the Land Development Code meeting that had been continued from September 18th. Just a quick reminder, this is just an effort to, it was an opportunity for staff and the board to review the text to make sure everything was accurate based on what direction the board had given staff, and bring it back for final adoption. I assume everyone may have a couple comments here and there on some things they have concerns about. But first off, I'd like to have Brad start off with stormwater and rainfall data concerns that are obviously been much discussed from many different angles. And just want to make sure we get the information out there before we move forward. So Brad, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll kind of start with, the question came up as to why did we do the research we did, and we had a group of engineers approach us, myself and Rebecca, and ask us if we had any data that would support the need for additional capacity in our holding ponds, in the development holding ponds. And we had a long conversation, and they actually challenged us with a good data collection point. So we went out and did that. And Rebecca and Michael and Andrew and their team took some time and went through all our ponds. So I'll kind of do a recap. I didn't want to do this to Rebecca this morning because you'd asked me this morning to kind of do an opening. So as you all know, I am not an engineer and never have pretended to be one. So I do rely on our professional engineers on our staff. So Rebecca, Michael, if I mess up anything in my recap, feel free to jump in. So I'm not going to put the PowerPoint up, but back in 1983, we had no stormwater regulations in the county. We did adopt one between 83 and 90 as a 10-year storm event. So that was our design model that we used. And then in 90, we increased that to a 25-year storm event for design. And then our previous county engineer, Mr. Blaylock, continued to have concerns over that and increased us to a 100-year storm design in our county, and we've been doing that since 1996, unlike the other counties around us. So we have had a higher standard of design for many years. So if you look at what we have, 74% of our ponds in our county were designed by the old standard. So looking at that as we go forward, and we look at the number of issues that we've had, the number of subdivisions that we had, we found that the main issues we were having with capacity in our ponds were older ones. So I'll give you an example. We have completed 16 HMPG, which is hazard mitigation grant projects, for subdivisions that were platted prior to 1983, and we designed them to the 100-year standard. And they have been very successful in mitigating the flood after they were completed. Michael has been very involved in our HMP process, and we have HMPG projects going on now, and we're continuing to submit any time that we can get additional dollars for that. So we did have 3 large drainage improvement projects funded by the county, 2 platted prior to 1983. One of them was the Florida Town East Bay culvert upgrades, and one platted in 2006, which is the Tiburon project. So, we were just challenged to do an analysis, and, they were anticipating that if we use the NOAA Atlas 14 data point that is highlighted, that it would cause us roughly a 30% increase in pond capacity. Well, we're already designing to a higher standard. We believe that 100-year was the key, and the majority of the flooding that we have seen, household flooding, discounting hurricane. I mean, we cannot design for hurricane surge. So I don't want to give any false hope to anyone who lives in a surge zone that anything that we do in this code is going to prevent a hurricane surge from inundating their house. And anybody who lived in that surge zone and lived here during Ivan knows that for a fact. So, so that's kind of how we got to where we were. And actually, I will let you know that if you look at the 13.44 that we use in our current code, it is within the range of the NOAA Atlas 14 data. They just use a predictive modeling because there are only 2 rain gauges that were used for our area. We only have actually 1 in our county, and that's at the fawn gauge up at the J Experiment Station. The other one they used was at the Pensacola Regional Airport. If you look actually at the data, it's pretty neat, and you go back and look at the areas of Florida that have a large amount of rain gauges, which means they have more data points, which means they don't have to use as much predictive modeling, and you actually see a decrease from the NOAA Atlas 14 rainfall data compared to the DOT IDF curve. So I am very familiar with how NOAA works. I've been in emergency management. I have very good friends in NOAA. Actually, you might not even know this, but I served as the only local emergency manager on the National Tsunami Hazard Mitigation Program, where I met with, it was actually a pretty neat program. Being we're tsunami ready, as y'all know, I got named Tsunami Man for a little while there, but being the only local EM perspective on that, I was able to engage with scientists and state emergency managers, and what they were trying to get was, hey, all this data we collect, is it actually what we're trying to do? Is it actually helping anybody at the local level? So it was really cool because I got to engage with the scientist side of that, and I gave them a local perspective of what we actually need, and we were able to kind of retweak the way they were thinking to help actually produce a great product. So I have been engaged with NOAA scientists, and I just thought that would be neat information for y'all to have. So I will turn it over to Rebecca if she has any follow-up, if I missed anything, or Michael, but just kind of want to kind of recap how we got here. And unlike I was accused of some shady backdoor dealings and all, that is not the case. We were just asked a question, and as I have done, matter of fact, I look around the audience here, I see 2 lovely ladies in the back who have approached me about things. I do my research and I get back to them. So that's where we're at, and that's how we got here.
So I think that Brad probably did a pretty good job of recapping the information I provided with the board. I just kind of go back and reiterate what Brad says. Our biggest concern we have is not really our pond capacities, it's getting the water to the ponds. So if we can use this code and use the provisions the revisions that we've had to help us get the water into the ponds, then I think we'll make a big stride in mitigating some of our actual flooding issues in this county.
Are there any comments or concerns, questions from the board with regard to rainfall data and stormwater issues in the Land Development Code? All right. Then we'll move on to the, I guess, maybe to commissioner concerns. I'll just make one quick comment. I know there was much discussion about the alternative subdivision, and then there was a vote to remove it. I just want to make sure that staff understood or that I understand as well what the board direction was there. I've had some people reach out to me, and I've had some questions too that didn't think about the way we addressed it. When it comes to rural areas, I think we voted to say alternative subdivisions is withdrawn and put to bed. But I just want to make sure, and maybe this is an opportunity for Sean to clarify if need be, or you could just give us a thumbs up or a head nod. Does this affect traditional residentially zoned properties, or are based on board direction, was it interpreted that we could not do clustering anymore?
Mr. Chairman, the staff took it as just removing the alternative subdivision section.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear about that. I know there was some concern that we were affecting residentially zoned properties as well, and I just want to make sure we got that out there.
Yes, it would. Well, I mean, it would affect, unless Sean's going to correct me. It wasn't district-specific. The whole section was removed, as I understand. Maybe Sean can correct me.
Yeah, I would assume you could still cluster using the PUD or other types of.
The PUDs are still available.
Yes, sir, that's correct. So we did take out the alternative subdivision language specifically, but there are other mechanisms within the land development code that would allow for the clustering. We allow clustering within our airfield overlay districts and some of the others.
And PUD.
Yes, sir. PUD. That is correct.
Rezonings could do it also.
Yeah, just want to make sure that we were very clear with the public about that, so we know
Yes,
that
sir.
we're not intentionally driving people out to urban sprawl on one house per acre just because we're not allowing it in typically more densely populated areas.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Calkins?
I just want to say that I believe that this decision by the board to do that was an absolutely horrible decision. And I would like to say that it actually took away conservation and it took away an effort to be able to plan communities in the right way. And what you're going to end up now with is more houses instead of less houses, less conservation. And I think it was a terrible decision, and I would hope that we revisit this. And so, just my thoughts.
Well, I'll go with our discussion that we had last time, and I think Commissioner Parker put it well, pushing a boulder uphill. That's certainly what we were doing at that time, and I think there's many things about the alternative subdivision that were a good thing, but I think there's another time and another place to try to skin that cat and figure out how we address the good things that policy would have provided. One other thing, we need to determine an effective date that this would take place based on a vote to approve today. I'm not sure if there's any board discussion. I kind of looked at it in I think it's a balancing act of trying to find, people that have projects in the works right now, how do we go ahead and make sure that they're still going to be good to go, but that we don't put a timeline out there so long that we allow everyone to kind of flood the county with projects, and have some problems. So my suggestion was going to be effective date of January 1, 2024. First of the year, that way building codes update at that point. Everything is just kind of give us a fresh date to start with the calendar. Is there any concerns or comments from the board on that one?
I had actually shared with some of our local engineering firms that I would ask for that as well, because they said some of these projects, they might have been working on 2 months, but they're not ready to submit. And so I told them that I would advocate for January 1, so I fully support that.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, in that regard, I'd given the board today some corrective language, our old language, as to when a project is considered in the system. To make it clear, it's the application date. If someone's been working on their home building permit for 6 months, just because they would have gotten their permit next week, no, it's when you submitted your application is the way the project would be measured.
Yes, and we've all got, I trust everyone's got a copy of that Tom gave everyone. So, yeah, absolutely, that's the case. Commissioner Calkins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with moving this farther. I still think that it's almost November now, November, December. I mean, there's a lot of work and planning and just a lot of things that go into these projects. And I would recommend that we go a little bit longer, maybe give a couple months. And if I'd recommend go to March, but if I'll listen to the will of the board on that. So,
Chairman, I think we need to go January 1st, like you mentioned. Let's start right then.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll agree with January 1. There's another item I'd like to address too.
Okay.
We're going to be going through that, right?
Yeah, so we've got, we know where we're at on the effective date. So yeah, I'll just start with you, Commissioner Smith, and then we can just go down the dais if anyone has any clarifications they want to make regarding the LDC. We do have a couple of people signed up for public comment, and just keep everyone reminded that 11:18, we do have a 1 o'clock meeting. So we do want to make sure we're somewhat expeditious about this. So go ahead, Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, I'd like to, and after I've been studying this one pretty hard, and it's something that was brought up in another meeting, and it was on the treatment or basically the classification of townhomes. We've just gotten, and I've been out to Berry Hill, and I've studied that townhome development that's going on in there. The whole thing's for lease, 100% lease. It's basically an apartment complex. So what we're doing by changing the definition of what a townhome is and putting it into single-family residential as far as the permitting and specifications go is we're actually allowing a commercial entity to perform in another guise, if you will. And I'm not comfortable with that, especially, you know, one of the other things that was it was a development that came up in Commissioner Parker's, I think it's on your side. Yeah, it is on your side. It's the townhome development that's right there by the middle school, right there at the corner across from the fire department, Avalon Middle. And as you're looking at that, I'm pretty sure it's going to be another 100% leased project. So that being said, that's where my uncomfort comes into play when we're saying, okay, let's treat townhomes outside of what we've been treating it as. And we're getting into the danger of basically allowing apartment complexes to spring up everywhere without any breaks. And I think this is something that we need to readdress and have that one. And I mean, I know I'm one vote here, but this is something that makes me uncomfortable, and I think this is something we're going to pay for down the line.
Commissioner Smith, I think you bring up a good point. We do want to be mindful of, we're trying to make sure that text was correct and that kind of thing, and not make a bunch of changes. Sean, would you be?
Get your walking shoes on.
Yeah, you might as well just stay at the podium. I'm sorry, Sean. Unless you want to have a seat up here. I share those concerns too. I think in the spirit of what I thought board direction was when it came to townhomes was the idea if it was, if a developer or someone came in and wanted to put townhomes in place, the idea would be it would be higher density, but they would be available for sale for individual ownership rather than being used as a workaround of to apartments. Would it be possible to, if you,
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, the difference between a townhome and an apartment is that it's platted, that they're individual lots like a subdivision. If you want to change, I don't know if Sean can do that on the fly, because I think he had to adjust various provisions, and maybe he's got a simple explanation of the changes that were needed for that.
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm trying
a
to figure
townhome,
out.
just like a home can be rented, what makes a townhome project is that there's a plat, and each unit has its own lot.
Yeah, I think the hang up is having one individual owner owning 40 townhomes,
Right, which you
thereby
can't.
getting around the. I would be more comfortable, and I'm not sure how we get there, but I'd be more comfortable if townhomes were available for, retail sale to individuals.
But we don't know, and that changes day to day. If they plat it, you have no idea you can set the regs however you want, but there's no way to do it based on whether a person is going to rent or not. Because you could build a whole subdivision, sell the homes, then buy them back and rent them. People rent homes all the time. But the planning department doesn't know if someone is renting or selling, because all they can go on is what's of record.
Okay, Sean?
Yes, sir. I was just going to say, so as far as the difference, and Rebecca can assist me as well, but they're selling the individual lots. What we looked at as far as the differences between the townhomes or a multifamily as an apartment complex was the platting process that they go through, the residential platting process versus a commercial site plan. Some of those different requirements may include the tree protection as far as residential subdivisions don't have tree protection other than the heritage trees. So a townhome project would not have tree protection other than the heritage trees. Looking at the differences in setbacks, a lot of those requirements are pretty consistent, but it was just the difference in how we were processing those townhomes. Instead of it being a commercial site plan, it is now considered a residential, plat, and going through that platting process.
Okay, if that's the distinction, I'm comfortable with that. Go ahead, Commissioner Smith.
So, that being stated, how many counties, and I know we're not comparing ourselves, but I just want to know, do you know of any counties that go with that model, putting a townhome in as residential?
So all townhomes have to go through the platting process. So if you sell those individual units, no matter who the ownership is under, if you sell those individual units, you have to go through the platting process. The only difference is we've distinguished the difference now. We've taken that out and said that specifically a townhome is a single-family residential structure compared to a multi-family structure such as an apartment complex.
And Mr. Chair, just to clarify too, in line with the Florida Building Code, no matter how we do the site review, they are considered residential. So where an apartment's going to be considered commercial review and a townhome's going to be considered residential, no matter what we do on this side of it.
Still and yet, there's a difference in treatment in your department, correct?
Yes, sir. It's just the process on how those are processed.
But it doesn't change what zoning district they're allowed in.
No, sir. Yeah, they're still only allowed in the multifamily. That was something that this board clarified. I just wanted to make sure that they weren't allowed in a single-family zoning district. They're only allowed in multifamily zoning districts. It is basically the same as an apartment complex. You're still going to have the common areas. But as far as ownership goes, I think based on state statutes, we can't control that.
So, as it stands, what are you able to alleviate or promote as far as where it stands now? They're coming in, they're putting in a townhome situation, and you're going out there and you're giving it the commercial treatment, so to speak. What's the difference as if it came back? Tell me any difference that stands out.
I think what we looked at, what staff looked at and compared primarily was the tree protection in that sense, that it was treated more of a residential subdivision in lieu of a commercial site plan process. The setbacks are pretty similar and consistent. There may be some difference in the landscaping requirements because we don't require landscape requirements for a residential subdivision. But other than that, those are going to be the only differences.
So, yeah, in reality, we can have this sterile apartment aspect to it versus with the commercial, or with the residential aspect versus the commercial, correct?
As far as sterile, I don't understand.
Well, yeah, we don't govern over what they do on a lot for a house, but you do on an apartment complex.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
So aesthetically,
that would be the difference.
It changes
yes, sir.
things
That would
up.
be a difference, yes.
Okay.
All right, Commissioner Parker, do you have anything, any concerns with the LDC?
No, and as far as the townhome thing, look, I share a lot of concerns that Commissioner Smith has. I adamantly opposed. It was one of the rezonings that was withdrawn a couple months ago where build to rent. But quite frankly, due to the mess that I'm having to deal with government at multiple levels, I'd be hard pressed to say that I want any more regulation. And the build to rent things, I'll say this, I referenced the ones down, I think it's in your district. Which one of y'all have the South End Annex?
Indico.
It's nice. And when these big companies are coming in, look, I'm not a big fan of the big stock exchange companies. And I mean, I won't name them, but they're not local builders. That's a fact. But I mean, it's America. It's capitalism. You can't keep them out, but they do tend to make it nice. But I'm comfortable with it. You know, who's to say that in 15 years they don't sell and then it becomes, you know, like Mr. Danheiser said, they could break it up. But the problem is what if me as a local guy wants to go build 10 townhomes one day to sell, and then, you know, we've arbitrarily put more regulation on this kind of broad brush. So I don't know. Those are my only comments. As far as the LDC and in general, no, we tackled Mr. Danheiser's, you know, made it crystal clear as far as applications submitted. You covered the effective date. Brad and Rebecca covered the stormwater issues, and I appreciate that clarification y'all put out there. And the little shout out, I appreciate Roger Blaylock, you know, I mean, for having the foresight back in the 90s to take us to the 25-year storm and then eventually to the 100-year. I don't have anything else, Mr. Chairman. It's probably far from perfect, but I mean, that's government. But hopefully, you know, some of these changes we've made will be an improvement from the one before. And just because it's probably the last time I talked during this meeting, thank you for the Fowler family for coming through and seeing it through. I think it's fitting that you're here. Steadfastness, that is like my motto when I think of your family now. So good to see y'all.
All right, Commissioner Calkins, any concerns or changes that you would suggest with the LDC, or are you relatively comfortable with what's been presented before?
There's a few things I like about it, but there's a lot of things I don't like about it. One of the big things is the cost analysis. That was a concern I had a long time ago, and I brought this up and y'all voted it down. So that's a concern. I think there's some good things we're doing down in the south end. Like Commissioner Parker said, it's not perfect, but there's a lot of, you know, regulations I don't like about it. But my biggest problem is not knowing how some of this stuff is going to cost some of our business community, and those are my concerns.
All right, Commissioner Eddington, any comments, sir?
I'm okay with it. I talked to Brad this morning and Tom. In the next few meetings, I'm going to bring up some stuff I'd like to change in it before the board and talk about it, but I'm not going to bring it today. But I'm okay with the stuff right now.
All right, so it sounds like we've got consensus amongst the board that we'll be able to take a vote shortly, but since we do have some people signed up to speak, I've got 4 people signed up to speak on the LDC. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on the LDC? If you just raise your hand so I can kind of gauge our time. Okay, so they give us 5 people. So let's do this. In the interest of time, let's give each person 3 minutes. We'll start with Matt Clark. Oh, I'm sorry. He was signed up for something else. We'll go to 4 minutes because we've got 4 people. So Sherry Chapman, Chris Kerb, you'll be next. Kyle Holly after that, and then Ms. Fowler.
Sherry Chapman, Pace. One of the things that I wanted to hit on was the fact that we've had all these updates and everything with rainfall data and all that, but we've still had problems. Tiburon was a big problem. We went back and we had to increase it. My question is, and I kind of hit on this before, is the insurance in Florida is outrageous. If our area tends to have a high level of claims because of flooding, that's going to increase our insurance premiums, and it's going to keep us from being able to keep them lower. So my question is, before y'all completely decide on this, how does insurance factor in to the flooding data that we use? I think that needs to be answered. Another thing is, we wouldn't have half the flooding if we wouldn't make the problem. And we've said that time and time again. I can tell you, I've lived here long enough and I've seen how it's done. You go out, you clear it off, you bring in some red clay, and the water runs off to everybody that was here before. And we've seen that time and time again. So I'm very disappointed that we do not have at least a percentage of trees that are kept on each lot or each acre and factored in as far as how small or large the acre is. But we are killing ourselves slowly through allergies, seasonal allergies, problems that we have because we don't have trees cleaning our air for us. We do not have purifiers in our front yard. And that's what we're giving up. And when people come down here and ask, where are the trees? That is one question that needs to be answered. We need a percentage of trees, which was supposed to be what the good thing about the alternative subdivision was. That was the only good thing about it, in my opinion, because it bordered on other people's rights. But we need to keep some trees on every acre. There needs to be a percentage. And this bit about letting the builders do the honesty trail, I'd like to see a list that the public can go to and see who has paid the fines for chopping down the trees that are too big, even the heritage trees. I can tell you that we're not getting the money that is necessary off of these trees. I drive around too frequently and see these huge trees, and I'm assured that they're not being paid. So I'd like to see that part of it changed. I think the public has spoken about it enough that we've questioned why it's not in there, and that is something that must be in there because this is our land development code. Y'all are just voting on it for us.
Thank you. Chris Kerb, you're next. Key your microphone.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chris Kerb with Flood Defenders. First of all, I'd like to apologize to staff and you guys for being so aggressive. It's just my nature. I got 3 P words here, and my computer went out on me this morning, so I couldn't print it. So I put my glasses on. Perplexed is the first word. I was perplexed because I thought no Atlas 14 was going to be in the code. I mean, we've been talking about this since at least August of 2022. And then all of a sudden it wasn't. And I get it. I get it. Mr. Henry said that no Atlas 14 is going to cost neighborhoods 25% more. And at a time when Bidenomics is killing this country. I get it. Persistence. I'm a paid advocate. I'm paid by the chairman of the American Flood Coalition. I don't get paid much, though. But I get a boatload of blessings for the advocacy work that I do. God has blessed me with the experience, the technical knowledge, and the resources that have put me on this path before you. Yes, I got a bonus for getting DOT to I just asked the question, why you got 2 rainfall data sources in your drainage design manual and you've had it since 2016, almost 6.5 years? I got a bonus for that. So yeah, there's a motivation there. But that's not why I'm doing this work. I'm doing this work to help people. I've sent some questions to all you, and they have not been answered. Passionate. I think you'll agree with me. I have the passion. That's one of the reasons the chairman of the American Flood Coalition hired me. I'm pushing the agenda of the American Flood Coalition at a local level. And the chairman pays me out of his own pocket. So if there's a question of my motivation and purpose of my purpose right here is to disclose that. If you want to know more about it, I'll be glad to send you my motivation for coming up here. And it's right there behind you, in God we trust. Because I'm trying to help people that lose everything from flooding. That's what I'm trying to do. And yes, I'm an influencer too. What do you think an advocate is? He's an influencer. Edwin Henry's an influencer. He pays his engineers to come down there and tell you stuff. So I don't know what y'all are going to do today, but my questions still have not been answered. On pond capacity, well, you're not looking at the whole basin. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I got more, and I'll email it to you.
Look forward to it. Kyle Holly?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Ms. Fowler?
Laura Fowler from PACE. I thank you for voting to remove alternative subdivisions. I'm very concerned about waiting until January 1st. I think we've been discussing these changes for such a long time that I think that any builder or developer who's been paying attention, and they should be paying attention, has had plenty of warning that these changes were coming. And especially since the original meeting was September 18th, and now it is October 26th. Plenty of time. Every alternative subdivision that has been submitted up to today, they get to do. And if you give them all the way till January 1st, that's 2 more months of alternative subdivisions that could be submitted. I'd like you to remember all the people that were here at the September 18th meeting who were negatively affected by alternative subdivisions. People brought PowerPoint presentations, they brought I mean, I'm sure you remember the one by the Yellow River that had 125 septic tanks going into the river. There were tons of people who were very upset about the alternative subdivisions being built next to them in their rural areas. And it's easy to forget these things when it's been more than a month since that meeting. I would ask that you would consider that the land development code go into effect today, and that's what I think would be best for the county. And as for alternative subdivisions being good for preserving trees, I think the best way to preserve trees would be lot size. I heard Edwin Henry himself say here at this podium that he would have no trouble preserving trees on 1-acre lots. So to say that an alternative subdivision would help preserve trees does not make any sense, since 1-acre lots are easy to preserve trees on. So if lot size is important for the quality of life for people, and that's what the alternative subdivision problems were all about. So I'd like for you to please consider having it go into effect today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else for public forum? That was the last person who signed up to speak. We've got... I can see that. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. It's 11:44.
I need 1 minute.
Yeah, I know. I'm just double checking. Anybody else wish to speak?
I'm going to have to speak.
Okay, that's why I asked Kyle when you're on the list. Okay. Two of you, you got the same amount of time, and you guys will be the last ones before board takes final action. Any final comments? Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Mancini. I live in Pace. I also represent the Home Builders Association. I just wanted to say real quickly that engineers take an oath to do their job with integrity and honesty. And I've been in some of those meetings and just want to go on the record as saying those engineers came representing themselves as engineers. No one was coerced, motivated, paid, or otherwise. You know, again, they take an oath to their profession, and they're not on anyone's payroll. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hawley?
Good morning, Kyle Hawley, Milton area. I would like the opportunity to explain that a disincentive has been created within non-ag areas. I know that you know that. I can see that you do not want to really take up and address that today. I think there will be opportunities to address that later. Anytime you would like to discuss using public policy to create incentives for infill to increase the rate of return on existing infrastructure, I would very much like to be a part of that conversation, particularly within proximity to critical facilities like healthcare facilities, hospitals. I do not want the code implemented today. We have been very patient today. We have been working for 2 years on a project. We would get misinformation all the time about what's coming and what's not coming. I have spoken with the Fowlers on occasion. They seem to understand why clustering provisions outside of PUDs are an incentive to us and complement the effort that they have made. I have complimented them on the effort that they have made, but that policy is creating a disincentive. So I would like the opportunity to see implementation of this code January 1st, as you have stated. That's why I denied the opportunity to come back, but when I see advocacy like that, I have to counter that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawley. And I think, just as a quick comment to that, I think you'll see that there's certainly appetite to address clustering and density and how to do some additional protections, and I welcome those conversations with you as well as many others. Let me address one thing, and then we'll just move on to a formal vote. Mr. Kerb, I'm going to call you out specifically because you came up and spoke, and I appreciate your apology that was given to the board. And you don't have to come back and say anything. I appreciate that.
Can I ask if you're going to acknowledge me that I have an opportunity to respond?
No, we're done with that now.
You get to call me out.
Sir,
I don't get to respond.
Sir, the board's going to have the last comment here. I appreciate your apology to staff and to the board. But sir, I personally, I'm not speaking for the board, but me personally, I've had enough. Number one, you are a paid lobbyist. And frankly, based on your tactics, not a very good one. I think an effort to spend more time trying to build a little more consensus with people would be better served. So take that as a lesson in lobbying. I'd like to remind the public that you're an Escambia County resident, not a Santa Rosa County resident. Okay? This board serves the residents and businesses in Santa Rosa County. And I'm glad you were very clear to acknowledge that you are not an engineer, because you've used terms recently as yesterday as my fellow engineers after receiving a cease and desist letter saying not to behave that way and that you are not an engineer.
I'm allowed to call myself an engineer if I have a civil engineering degree.
I think the law states something else. And And I just want to remind everyone, you took the time to send an email to the board, along with a number of, 72 other people. And that email was based on, yes, you've sent questions to all of us, and I don't know why anyone may have chosen to answer or not answer. I've chosen to not answer anymore because of the tactics and the attitude in which you've presented your arguments. They've been very adversarial, and they haven't been actually trying to accomplish anything other than your specific view. And, sir, it's not for you to speak. I'm just going to make a point that we talk about the media, we talk about advocacy, we talk about all these things, but there was obviously a coordinated effort between you and others and a local journalist to put an article together. And then that article was forwarded to you. You then sent that to us along with questions, so that's why this is out in the open. And it's addressed Elizabeth Thomas, Santa Rosa County Administration staff, fellow engineers, and other recipients. Quote, very helpful. It's on now. Brad Baker is not an engineer, and Rebecca Jones has been influenced to ignore science. Is it not obvious? Sir, that crossed the line. And I'm going to tell you right now, you can impugn me all day long, or any of these other four sitting up here. We're elected officials, and we'll take the heat. I take a lot of crap. I take people saying I'm on the take, I'm a liar, I'm a cheat, all those things. None of it's true, but I'm the one that signed up to do this job. That man right there didn't sign up for that. That woman right there didn't sign up for it. And I'm not going to have someone who calls himself an engineer, who's not an engineer, turn around and throw shade at somebody else saying they're not an engineer. So from now on, sir, it really doesn't matter what you have to say. Unless you change your tone and how you do it, my ears are closed. And I think one of the reasons you've been given the reception you've been given is because of your actions. And I'll probably take a lot of heat over what I just said, but that's the end of it. You're done. Enough. Another outburst from the audience, and that deputy will take you out of here. All right, we'll move on to formal adoption of the Land Development Code. Are there any last comments from the board? Or we'll move to adopt it as presented, effective January 1, 2024.
I oppose.
All right, we'll go to I'll make a motion to adopt.
Second.
All right, we have a proper motion and a second. I assume the voting will come up on the screen.
Mr. Chairman, let's go to the discussion. I just want to say why I oppose. Again, I would like to say that this board voted against a cost analysis statement, and I think it's wrong, and that's the huge major reason, and I don't want my name on this. I think that there's a lot of things we can improve, so I could count probably it's going to pass, and I hope that we can still improve upon it. But I strongly support a cost analysis statement. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to know that you will only vote for a perfect document. Motion yes is to adopt, effective January 1, 2024. A motion or a vote no is to not adopt. Please vote.
Name showed up.
Has it come up on the screen yet?
You on the agenda screen? Not now. I'm back off of it. I'll remove it again.
I'll tell you what, we'll just do it by hand raise and a voice vote. All those in favor of adopting the Land Development Code as presented effective January 1, 2024, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
All right. Let the record show that passes 4-1, effective January 1, 2024. Commissioner Calkins in opposition. We'll move back, reconvene the regular board meeting. Just a quick review of the meeting list. At 1 p.m. today in this County Administrative Center boardroom at 6495 Caroline Street, Milton, Florida, we'll be having our revenue workshop. At 5 p.m. we'll have a commission special rezoning meeting. November 2nd, at the Tiger Point Community Center, we'll be holding a TDC board meeting at 8:30 a.m. Back in this boardroom, November 6th, the Aquatic Center feasibility study presentations will be held at 8 a.m. A commission public forum, November 6th, and that's been amended to 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And the commission committee meeting, November 6th, will begin at 6:30 p.m. that evening. And that adjourns us for today.